So today we are going to be doing composition of functions. A little bit about notation here. So takes a little bit to get used to seeing this, but these are f of g and g of f functions. Note the little symbol in there, it's tiny, but it's an open circle. Because of that, these are often called the Fogg and Goff functions. When we give you a problem, typically it's going to look the way it does on the left side, but for actually solving it, it's easier if it looks like the right side. So when I do these problems, you're going to see me rewrite it like this. So it's just easier to conceptualize what we have to do to get to our answer. So looking at Fogg, for instance, f of g of x, notice that the g of x is paired together in its own set of parentheses. We refer to these as inside and outside functions. Inside is in the parentheses, outside is by itself. This looks complicated, but once you see a few examples, you'll see it's really not that bad. Before I get started, just a quick review. If you did the homework or been doing the homework and it makes sense, this will be a piece of cake. F of x equals negative 4x plus 5, and it's asking us to find f of negative 3. So that means that negative 3 goes in x's spot. Any of the x's that are there. So we have negative 4 times negative 3 plus 5. And again, you can do the math in your head or use a calculator. Just make sure you're careful about it, whichever way you do it. Calculator, if I write it, I type it. Negative 4 times negative 3 plus 5. 17. So 17 is our answer. This process that I just did here, you guys learned the other day, that's what we're going to be doing in these notes, and for each problem we're going to be doing it twice. And that's pretty much it. Let's take a look at an actual example. Number 1, we have f of x is 2x minus 7, and g of x is negative 4x plus 1. First, we're asked to find Fogg of 4. Let's first rewrite it like it is above on the right side. The trick, whatever letter is closest to the number, that's going to be the inside function. So it's going to get its own set of parentheses. So f, that's left out, it's going to go on the outside. And then g of 4 is going to go in that set of parentheses. Since this is the first problem, I'm going to make a short list of steps over here just to explain what I'm doing. I'll only do that for the first problem. When we do these, the process we do is we work inside out. What that means is we do the inside function first, and then we do the outside function second. So let's start with that inside function. Our problem here is g of 4. We have our equation above, so just like I did in the previous example, I'm going to plug a 4 into the x's. So we have negative 4 times 4 plus 1. Again, you can do that in your head or use a calculator. I'm just going to talk aloud for this one. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16, plus 1 is negative 15. Now we're not done, because we still have to deal with f. I'm going to come over here and update my list real quick before I continue. First, find g of 4. And we just figured out that g of 4 is negative 15. Next, we have the outside function f. I'm going to take it and bring it down. Now, in the original problem, inside those parentheses was g of 4. We have now figured out that g of 4 is actually negative 15. So I'm going to take that number I just got, and I'm going to drop it into here. So for my last step here, then plug negative 15, bless you, into f. So now we have a new problem to solve, f of negative 15. So f above, we have 2x minus 7. We're going to plug negative 15 into both x's, which the first one I've already done. So it's 2 times negative 15 minus 7. F of negative 15 equals 2 times negative 15, that's negative 30, minus 7, negative 37. Since this was the outside function, I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm done. This is my answer. Question just on the process. All right, let's do another. For our second example, we have another fog function, but we have a different number. So we're going to follow the same steps, but the numbers are going to look a little different. Starting off, let's put this in the other notation. So g is closer to negative 5. It's going to be grouped together in its own set of parentheses. F goes on the outside. G of negative 5 goes on the inside. So now we can clearly see the inside function and the outside function. We'll start with the inside function. Let's find g of negative 5. And for convenience, I rewrote the equations on a post-it so I don't have to keep going back and forth to the above equations. We have our g function. We're going to plug negative 5 into the x here. So we have negative 4 times negative 5 plus 1. G of negative 5 equals negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20 plus 1 is 21. We're not done yet because we still have to worry about the outside function. So now I'm going to bring down f. And again, we figured out that the number inside of here is actually just 21. So I'm going to bring that and drop it down into these parentheses. And now we have a second problem to solve, f of 21. So top equation here. I'm going to put a 21 into the x. We have 2 times 21 minus 7. Again, calculator in your head is fine. 2 times 21, that's 42 minus 7, that's 35. We have our answer. Reminder, you are more than welcome to use a calculator for that. Questions after the second example. We're going to do one more with these equations. We're going to go the other direction and do a Goff function. So this time it's f that's closer to the number, so it's going to get grouped inside of those parentheses. G is on the outside, f of 2 is on the inside. Let's start with the inside function. This time it's f of 2. Again, I got the equations on the side here. We're going to plug 2 into that x. 2 times 2 minus 7. F of 2 equals 2 times 2 is 4 minus 7. That's negative 3. And then we're not done because we still have to figure out g. So we're going to bring g down and do that again. We now know that the number inside of here is actually just negative 3. So we're going to drop that into that place. G of negative 3. Now we got to solve that. Our equation over here, negative 4x plus 1, we're going to put negative 3 into the x. We have negative 4 times negative 3 plus 1. Negative 4 times negative 3, that's positive 12, plus 1 is positive 13. That was the outside function. There's nothing else to do. This is my answer. Questions up to this point? All right, let's look at the back page. We're going to work with one more set of equations. These are, one of them is a bit trickier and the other one is actually a bit easier than the ones on the front. So these problems themselves aren't hard, but we can make the equations harder. We're not going to go too difficult in Algebra 2, but if you're going to go beyond, we could definitely show you some harder equations. All right, A, f of g of negative 5. This time g is closer to the number, so it's going to get put in the parentheses. And because of how I format this, I'm actually going to drop down here to rewrite. F is on the outside, g of negative 5 is on the inside. And we're going to figure this guy out. Start with g of negative 5. G function is just x minus 2, very easy function. We're going to put negative 5 into x. So we get negative 5 minus 2. G of negative 5 equals negative 5 minus 2 is negative 7. That was the inside function. Now for the outside function. Going to bring down f. We now know that g of negative 5 is actually just negative 7. So we're going to drop that number into these parentheses. And then we're going to plug negative 7 into the f function. This is one where I strongly recommend a calculator. When we add in more complicated things into the equation, extra things like exponents, more variables, more numbers in general, just makes it a little bit more complicated. That's just my recommendation. So negative 7 will go into x, and this is x squared. So negative 7 goes in the parentheses, and then we square on the outside, not on the inside. Plus 1. Now again, I make a big deal about this because this happens every single year. This is wrong. Can someone tell me what is wrong about what I put in the calculator? I didn't put the parentheses. For some of you, parentheses are no big deal. It is a big deal. The calculator reads it differently if you don't put the parentheses there. So I will not get negative 48 when I type it in correctly. This is why I always say, if you write it down, you need to type it in. Negative 7 squared plus 1. Now I get the correct answer of 50. That's very different from negative 48. F of negative 7 equals 50. That was the outside function, so this is my final answer. Wonderful. We have one more of those. This time we're going to do Goff. F this time is closer to the 4, so it's going to get its own set of parentheses. G is the outside function. F of 4 is the inside function. Let's bring down f of 4 and solve that. F of 4. And we have x squared plus 1 is the f function. So we're going to plug in 4 into the x. Again, put 4 in parentheses and then put the squared on the outside. Plus 1. F of 4 equals, this one I'm just going to talk aloud about. 4 squared is 16 plus 1 is 17. And G, we're going to bring him down. We now know that the number that goes in here is 17, so we'll just bring it over, drop it in there. And now we'll find G of 17. G is just x minus 2, so I'll plug 17 in for the x. This is 17 minus 2. G of 17 equals 17 minus 2, 15. That was the outside function, so that is my final answer. Questions over this section, A or B? Okay, we've got one more. If you've already taken a look, you will notice that f and g are not equations, they are sets of points. For whatever reason, a lot of students are used to using equations, so when they get to problems like this one, and especially on test day, unfortunately, they kind of freeze because they're so used to using that equation. Points tables, they're honestly not bad, you just have to know what you're doing. And they're less work than an equation because you're not doing any actual math. So just keep that in mind. So let's take a look at how we do it when we have sets of points. We have fog of negative 2. G is closer to the number, so it's going to get paired with it. So that gives us f on the outside and g of negative 2 on the inside. Let's bring down g and work with it first. G of negative 2 equals, since we don't have an equation to plug into, we have to kind of reframe our thinking a little bit. We're working with points. So reminder, the negative 2, that just represents the x value, and what we're trying to find represents the y. So essentially the question we're answering is -2 what for g? That's the question. So we go to the g function above and we find this point. -2 is the x. The number in the y spot is +2. So that's the answer we're going to write here. And now we find f. We have f of...
Making algebra 2 quiz?
Am I making it?
Are you happy?
Oh no, I'm doing it Monday.
You are?
Yeah. Now we know that the number that goes inside these parentheses is actually just 2. So I'm going to drop it down. And then I'm going to repeat this same method of thinking here. Once again, this is the x, we're trying to find the y. So the question is to what for the f function. So I'm going to go to the f function above. I'm going to look for this point. It's the second point, we have 2, and in the y spot we have a 5. So 5 is the answer. Since that was my outside function, I'm done. Questions on this process when we have points instead of an equation? We'll do one more going the other direction. We have a Goff function. So this time the f gets paired with the 4. And I'll rewrite it. G's on the outside. F of 4 is on the inside. Let's take care of the f of 4 first. Again, we're working with points this time, so we're not plugging in necessarily. 4 is the x, we're trying to find the y. So we're trying to answer this question, for what? And I need to go back up to those points to answer that. Again, this is for f. So I go over here, and I look for this point with the 4 in the front. And it's all the way at the end. 4 is x. In the y spot, we have a 1. So y is 1. And then we do that with the outside function. Bring down the g. We have g on the outside, sorry. In the parentheses, we can now drop that 1 into there. And we'll do that process again. We know x is 1, we're trying to find y. The question we're answering is 1 what? So I'm going to go back up to the g function, and I'm going to find this point. So g function, where x is 1, so this point here, y is 3. 3 is the answer. Since that was the outside function, that is my final answer.